is more influential, Kurt Cobain or Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Considering Kurt Cobain is dead, I think maybe not as influential.
Taylor Swift is huge right now, so.
Right now, I'm gonna say them Swifties they're coming in hot, man. I'm gonna say Swiftie, man.
I feel like I was targeted for this question, so I just have to say Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift.
I guess Taylor Swift.
Do you guys know who Kurt Cobain is?
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Taylor Swift.
Do you guys know who Kurt Cobain is by any chance?
I've heard the name.
Who do you think is more influential, Taylor Swift or Kurt Cobain?
Taylor Swift.
Why is that?
Because old people like me that love Taylor Swift.
It's no surprise that these artists are both popular, but I'm here to answer the question, who's more influential? Kurt Cobain, the grunge artist who went ahead and arguably defined a whole generation, or Taylor Swift, who has millions of fans in the United States and is probably one of the most popular artists right now. Alright, so how I'm going to be deciding who has more influence is through 5 points I have. It's going to be who influenced a generation more, who influenced fashion more, who influenced attitudes more, who influenced artists more, and the music industry more. And since both of these artists are both insanely big, I figured that they would have at least have 1 point in each of these categories. First up is who influenced a generation more. So this one might be no surprise, but it's Kurt Cobain. I mean, he probably went ahead and was like one of the most iconic people of his generation. Back in the 90s, Gen X, they looked up to Kurt Cobain. Like, nobody now goes ahead and says, oh, I look up to Taylor Swift. Some might say that, but it's not as big as, say, like Kurt Cobain. Like, his influence, he literally went ahead and made kids, like, of their time to want to go ahead and rage at the establishment. Go ahead and be like, hey, that is messed up. I want to go ahead and do what he did and completely change it. So, I'm going to say that this point is given to Nirvana. Don't get me wrong, Taylor Swift probably has had some influence on her generation, but it's definitely not as big as Kurt Cobain's. I'm like, that's a no-brainer. I'm sorry if there's like no big evidence I'm giving, but I'm like, if you look at the times, like no one's going to be like, oh, I want to be like Taylor Swift, I want to be big, I want to date a football star, oh. I'm like, no one's going to be like that in our generation. Some might want to be like that, but I'm definitely going to say Kurt Cobain wins this one by far. The first category was a bit unfair, but I'm like, it's kind of a no-brainer. Alright, this next one, it shouldn't be too uneven or too unfair because Kurt Cobain and Taylor Swift both have had influence in fashion at some point in time. Back then, Kurt Cobain had a big influence on grunge fashion. I'd kind of just see it as like his own kind of style. But there are fashion designers that cite Kurt Cobain as being one of their influences, such as I think Gucci and maybe Louis Vuitton? I'm not sure. That one I'm not sure of. Don't quote me on that. I'm an idiot. Don't take anything I say seriously. Anyway, but like, there's also been at some point where brands that Taylor Swift has worn have surged in popularity just because she's worn them. Like, they see sales go up. And I mean, that's kind of influence. She's influencing fans to buy brands that she likes, kind of, by like wearing it. But it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's to where like, oh, fashion designers are basing it off of like the style of, say, what Kurt Cobain or Taylor Swift wore. So I don't know. This one I think goes to Kurt Cobain as well. I mean, it could have gone to Taylor Swift, but she's just wearing a brand. It'd be similar of saying like this big artist wore like a Vans t-shirt and suddenly Vans sales went ahead and got shot up, or someone was like wearing Converse and Converse just instantly shot up in sales. Like, I wouldn't say that's influential. I say it's just like, oh, it's just like you just see something and you're like, oh, the artist is wearing it, so I'll buy it. But I guess that's also a little bit of thing of influence, so I don't know. But I definitely think since fashion designers cite Kurt Cobain as being one of their big inspirations, I'm going to say this goes to Kurt. this next one is a little bit weird because attitudes are a bit hard to kind of like put a point on, but I think I can find a way to do it evenly. Let's start with Kurt Cobain's influence towards people's attitudes. So in the 90s, a lot of younger generation people, like the younger kids during that generation, they were kind of just like not as rebellious, say, something like that. Obviously, the punk movement in the 80s went ahead and had an influence on some of the kids being a bit more, you know, angry and aggressive. But Kurt Cobain, I think, was the one that skyrocketed it in the 90s to having a bit more of a, let's just say, more of a fuck you attitude, I guess. I don't know. More of like a go away, I'm not going to talk to you attitude, maybe. Like, that's how I describe it. And maybe I think it might have been a confidence booster for some of these kids, because a lot of them, they kind of resonated with Kurt Cobain, just being like, yeah, no, we're not going to do what you tell us. And I mean, it's the 90s. It was like I want to say it's like the generation of like rebellion. That's what I'd probably describe the 90s as. And it was all thanks to Kurt Cobain. Like him and other bands like Rage Against the Machine, and I want to say other punk bands like Bad Religion, maybe even Green Day, back then were like influencing their attitudes. Now Taylor Swift, on the other hand, her influence towards attitudes, it's a bit weird. So her fans are called Swifties, obviously, and Swifties have been known to have pretty aggressive attitudes towards other people's opinions. So I don't know if she technically influenced those attitudes by having her own attitude or look out on things, but I will say it's not looking that great. Not that great for Taylor Swift, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm sure there's Swifties out there that aren't gonna be like, oh, I hate your opinion on the internet and try to go ahead and bring you down or try to change your opinion on it. But I'm like, still, it's not a great attitude. But I mean, I'll say this: they're dedicated. They're dedicated to their fan base. I'm like, that's a pretty big attitude thing, I guess, with Swifties. As for who had it better, I don't know. I'm gonna say it's probably Kurt Cobain again, because his influence at least wasn't teaching kids to go ahead and get mad at people for having a different opinion. It was just stand up for yourself, kinda. While Taylor Swift's fans' attitudes, yeah, I think her fans' attitudes anyway are completely different. Taylor Swift, on the other hand, I'm sure her attitudes is chill. I'm sure she has a couple of stances on stuff that changes attitudes, but still, I'm gonna say it goes to Kurt Cobain though, just because of the whole like stand up for yourself attitude. Now this one's kind of my favorite one. It's seeing who influenced artists more. So Kurt Cobain, he has a couple of big names under his belt. With people that go ahead and have cited him as being one of their biggest influence. For instance, Weezer, Rivers Cuomo has cited Kurt Cobain and Nirvana as one of their biggest influences. There's also bands like Oasis and Green Day. There's also even newer artists, like of this generation, like Lana Del Rey or Kid Cudi, and even Bush, Bush. Although Bush isn't of this generation, that's back in the 90s. Again, it's still a pretty big influence for bands and artists. Those are some pretty big names. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was even shocked to see like some newer artists go ahead and were like, oh, Kurt Cobain's kind of my influence. I'm like, really? I thought it was pretty interesting. Now, Taylor Swift does have artists that have been influenced by her. For instance, Olivia Rodrigo, Baby Queen, I think that's the name. I'm not sure. Please don't get mad at me. I'm an idiot. So I'm allowed to say stupid things. That's how it works, right? Being idiot, being dumb, you're allowed to say dumb stuff. Anyway, there's also I'm gonna get so much flack if I say this wrong. Is it Gayle or is it just Gayle? However you say it, it's spelled Gayle. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. Please don't shoot me. Anyway, but artists like her have said that Taylor Swift was an influence on them. So it's like, yeah, she's influenced artists, but those have also been artists that are mostly in just the pop genre. Those are artists that make pop music instead of, say, artists that have made completely different music. For instance, Weezer and Green Day, they both have kind of separate styles of music, but since it came out in the 90s, it's a little bit similar. Like Weezer and Green Day. Weezer's power pop, Green Day's punk rock, obviously. But there's then artists like Kid Cudi and Lana Del Rey that aren't like based in the rock genre of like Nirvana and stuff like that. So that's a little bit different. But with Taylor Swift, it's just pop artists that have been influenced by her, which, I mean, it makes sense since she is a pop artist. She's a pop musician. She makes pop songs. Obviously, other pop artists are going to be inspired by her. But I feel like since her inspiration is limited to other artists and it's only inspiring people in one genre, I'd say this also goes to Kurt Cobain. Alright, so this is the last category. It's who's influenced the music industry more. So we're going to be looking at how the artists influence the music industry and their own kind of ways. So let's look at, you know what? No, let's look at Taylor Swift first, because I've been giving Kurt Cobain a bit too much love. Let's look at Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift, her influence on the music industry has been mostly in sales. Like whenever she releases like a album or like some sort of single, it goes ahead and skyrockets in sales and the music industry starts booming, obviously. But she also has that influence on, say, her own kind of owning her rights to her songs, because there was that whole scandal thing or whatever where it's like, oh, this producer was like holding the rights to her own songs, because it's like, oh, technically because he owns the rights, but she was the one that wrote them and made the song. But I don't know, it's weird legal jumbo, something like that. Anyway, but she then went ahead and released it on her own kind of thing, like re-released it, re-recorded the songs, and now all of her songs that she used to didn't own, now she owns. So it's like, oh, it shows artists it might influence artists to go ahead and do the same thing, to be like, hey, yeah, no, I'm not gonna let you have my shit. I'm not gonna let you have it. I'm not gonna let you do that. No. Not gonna let you do that. So I'd say she's influential in that. And obviously, I guess she's also been influential in kind of like the whole big like vinyl resurgence. This feels a little embarrassing, but I have a whole ton of vinyl right here. And I guess I have to say thank you, Taylor Swift, for bringing vinyl back. Otherwise, I wouldn't have all of these great vinyls. Anyway, still, it's like, that's a pretty big influence, having to like bringing back something that used to go ahead and that was starting to get dated, I guess, that was starting to be like old. Even in the 90s, whenever CDs were being released, like vinyl was starting to fall out. So it's like, that's pretty big if you could go ahead and make a resurgence of something old come back. Okay, I think that's pretty good for Taylor Swift's side. So now let's look at Kurt Cobain's side. Kurt Cobain, he influenced the music industry in a bit of a different way. So whenever Nevermind came out, everyone was surprised and shocked about it, because it showed more of Kurt Cobain's personal feelings at the time. It showed kind of what it meant to be showing your feelings was. For instance, whenever Kurt Cobain went ahead and was singing about something in the way, for instance, wanting to go ahead and be basically homeless under a bridge, that's kind of what the song's basically kind of saying. That's what it was feeling at the time. So it basically showed the music industry, or changed the music industry, and being like, hey, this can work. You can sing about your own personal stuff, deeper stuff, instead of just being like, oh, I'm in love with a girl, or I'm in love with a guy, or I really like this thing. It's like, you show more emotions, show something cool, show like your deep emotions. So that's pretty big. He also went ahead and defied some of the music producers as well, because there was that live show on MTV. I think it was MTV. It was either on MTV or a British network where they were doing a live show, and they went ahead and were like, hey, so we're gonna want you to go ahead and basically, what is it? Lip sync. That's it. Lip sync's the word. I'm remembering. I'm smart. Anyway, they wanted him to lip sync Smells Like Teen Spirit, and whenever he did, they went ahead and performed it, but they did it basically like, yeah, we're not doing it your way, and purposely ruining the lyrics, purposely ruining the song, basically, because it's like, oh, we're lip syncing, then it's not a live performance. I might as well just have them play the music over the radio and have me sit here on stage. I'm like, that's a pretty cool, big, big screw you. Anyway, sorry, I think I got off topic there. I like rambling about stuff. But as for influence, I think the point goes to both Kurt and Taylor. They've influenced the music industry in their own ways that I don't think I can just go ahead and be like, oh, Kurt's better or Taylor's better. I think they both have it in one point. All right, no surprise, Kurt Cobain is the winner by my rules. I know, kind of one-sided. I didn't mean for this to happen, I promise. I know, like I said, I'm a big Kurt Cobain fan, and I don't hate Taylor Swift, but I just don't like her music. Like, that's it. I don't hate her or anything, but I just wanted to look, because this whole debate of who's bigger or who's more influential, Kurt Cobain or Taylor Swift, and I think we need to look at influence in a different way. Just because you're popular, it doesn't mean you have more influence. Obviously, if you're popular, you have a better influence, but you don't have as much as, say, I don't know, some smaller niche group thinks, because there's obviously, say, like movies and pop culture and stuff, or like TV shows, books, all that stuff that could have big influences on people and yet still be like unknown. Like, that's what I'm saying. So just don't think that popular means, oh, they have a bigger influence. Popular just means you're popular. I think that's what the takeaway of this video should be. And I know Nirvana and Kurt Cobain are probably one of the most biggest bands in the world in rock music, but whenever you look at it through a whole scope of the whole music industry, a lot of people seem to forget that Kurt Cobain kind of influenced how music is today, and went ahead and think, oh, he only got big because he was popular. No, he got big because of the things he said, thought, and did. I think that's why Kurt Cobain wins, who has more influence over this. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I wanted to say thank you for watching. Anyway, I'll be here in my next monthly upload, maybe, probably not. I'll probably be back whenever. So enjoy this short video. I hope it's short, and bye.